annually at this event, one of the things that we do is we honor an individual. This year, as we prepared for this event, we determined that time was right to honor not a fellow alumni, but to instead honor an individual who we all know very well, but when we stop and think about who has made the fabric of the alumni body and who has a constancy in developing us all as the professionals and the alumni that we are, that this was the time to honor Fran. And I don't think that Fran needs much more introduction from me than that. We have a bio that we forced Fran to give us to put into the program. So you have a little bit of background on Fran. But more important than that, this evening, like we do at every annual meeting, we want to take the opportunity by pulling together a panel of speakers that speak about different points of the individual's career, different perspectives on the individual, and really give us a little bit of a window into the individual. And then our favorite part of the evening is when the honoree, and this evening, Fran, will actually speak to us about her work at Erikson and her thoughts on the impact of Erikson and the alumni body. So at this point, I would like to invite our current president, Sam Meisels, to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Gina. Thank you very much. This is just a wonderful evening here to honor a wonderful, wonderful person. A person, the amazing thing is that every single person in this room loves that woman back there. Isn't that amazing? It is really pretty amazing. Here's another factoid that Fran has been on the faculty of Erikson Institute. I didn't count how many this might be, but more than many of our current students have been alive. 34 years. Does that work? Yeah, it works. I see a lot of nodding heads from recent grads. Right, which is, you're lucky, okay? I'll tell you that too, that you aren't yet 34 years old. She was dean for 14 years. I have no idea how many of those years she was dean and vice president for academic affairs while I was president, but all I know is that I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for her, because she taught me Erikson Institute. Erikson Institute, is small. But Erikson Institute is complicated. Everyone who works here knows it is complicated. It has many, many moving pieces. And Fran would say, it's okay, we'll do all right, we'll figure it out, you sit down, I'll explain that one to you. And it just went on and on like that. So actually, Fran has said many very, very profound things over the years. Some of those profundities are on these things that are on your table, these plastic things, whatever the right word might be for a plastic thing, right? And but I have a number of things that I want to share with you. We have here at Erikson something that we call Franisms, or Franek Dotes. And I have collected a number of Franek Dotes from various sources. Some are sources of my own that I have been exposed to, very important Franek Dotes over the years. Some have come from faculty, from friends, and from students. So I want to share a few of these. The first has to do with, after all, what? Development, right? I mean, this is our paragon of development and of maturity. I now look to my faculty colleagues. Is there anyone else who's more put together than Fran Stott? No chance. No chance. Doesn't include us. That's for sure. All right? The faculty knows this. When Fran Stott announced that she was stepping down from being dean, I mean, it was like she said, and I'm going to die on the spot. I mean, the sadness that overtook the mourning that over. So, all right, development, though. Let's not go that direction. So an example of a Franism in development. Every child deserves someone who is crazy about them. Mark that down. All of you women who are under 34, okay? Mark that down if you don't know already. And another example, it isn't the person who feeds you that you fall in love with. It's the one who comforts you. And so tell that to all the Jewish mothers who are out there, all right? Development represents hope. Maybe they'll get over it, right? That's one way to look at development. So let's say a few words about hope. First of all, risk factors are not fate. Okay, remember that, all right? You can overcome this. Secondly, pain is not pathology. We actually had a conversation tonight. Fran and myself, my wife Alice, we had a conversation about pain is not pathology. You can't get very near Fran without her talking to you about a Franism. And it's a profound Franism. I'm glad to have Franism experiences. And just today, I learned a new Franism. It may not be new for Fran, but it was new to me. And that is, for all of you who may need this, shy is not bad. All right. In case there's anyone here who's shy. I don't know if there is, all right? Okay, but just by the way, in case the hope doesn't really work out, we do have another topic here, and that's resignation, acceptance, all right? So now these were pointed out to me by my dear friend and colleague, Linda Gilkerson, who told me that at one time or another these appeared on Fran's office wall. You have to act right. Now, don't forget that Fran was, after all, our dean and senior vice president for academic affairs, so she had to set the tone, right? You have to act right, and the sad truth is you have to change or pay more for staying the same. So that was before my time, I think, because she never asked for any money from me. But the other thing we count on with her is truth, and we get a lot of truth. Here's one, by the way, truth doesn't just happen in the past, it happens in the present. Monday night, I believe it was this Monday night, were we at dinner Monday night? It was this Monday night, or I have to check which Monday nights. I learned this from Fran. I learned that everyone who works with children ought to know something about children. Or maybe she said, I think she actually said, ought to know something about child development. I wrote it wrong. But it's the same thing. And she said it with kind of a snarl, I might point that out. The context. But then there's this other truth that comes from Fran on a very regular basis, and that is this. It depends, right? Now, I can't say that Fran really owns it depends. There are many parents of that thought, it depends, but she uses it more than most, right? And it does give her a way out. All right, now, you know that. The students here know that. All right, so now, I worked with Fran, as I told you, for 5-6 years, as she was my dean and vice president for academic affairs. And so we have this thing in the extremity when she would come into my office and she would say, "Help me, Rhonda." And I'll bet there are family members in that back table who know that expression. But then every time I would go into her office and say, "I just got a new grant," what I'd hear her say to me was, "We're in the money, we're in the money." And she would sing this to me. So there are these other sides of her that you may not have met. And then, but overall, the one thing you always can count on about Fran Stott is that what you see is what you get. And what you get is something absolutely marvelous. And she said something some years ago, which fortunately was written down, or else I would have no way of remembering it. She said something some years ago which had to do with our mission at Erikson Institute. And it was so important and so profound that we actually made it into one of the central features of our accreditation policy, that we wanted others to know about Erikson Institute. And it's this, that the beauty of being small is we can really be who we say we are. And Fran Stott is the person who is who she says she is, and we are all incredibly lucky to have had this experience with her. Thank you, Fran.
Has Fran stopped crying down there? I'm just incredibly pleased to be here tonight. I'm going to try to get through this without crying. Not that Fran would care if I cried. She'd just cry with me. And then I'd never get to say any of the things I wanted to say. So I'm going to read my comments tonight so that Fran can hear them, and I hope they will resonate with all of you. First of all, a personal thank you to Fran for being there for me throughout all the Erikson's ups and downs we've gone through together. There were many occasions when it was Fran's even keel that kept the boat afloat, for which I am eternally grateful. But I really want to talk tonight about Fran's legacy at Erikson. Although there are many things I could mention, in the interest of time, I'm going to focus on two of her contributions that are woven now into the fabric of this institution. Fran came to Erikson, if you've seen those pictures, when both she and Erikson were very young. It was a time when the field was experiencing an explosion of research in child development that challenged some of the old ideology and traditions in the field. With great diplomacy and tact, Fran first introduced new ideas into the basic child development course. Instead of letting ideology and traditions dictate, by example, she rested with the new ideas that came up, new ways of combining the old with the new. This began a tradition that has become institutionalized at Erikson, one of constantly integrating new knowledge into our teaching and practice. Many schools teach theories and methods that are old as continuing truths. Others teach a variety of different theories, leaving it to the student to try to sort out a position for themselves. Beginning with the core development course and through her work as dean, Fran helped all of us balance the need for stability with the need for change. Fran taught us not to fear learning something new. Many years ago, Fran and I wrote an article in which the phrase, "theory is a slippery base for practice," appears. Its meaning was that it is a challenge to both embed practice in a solid theoretical foundation while being willing to tolerate ambiguity, conflict, and change. That we do this at Erikson is one piece of Fran's legacy. The other piece of that legacy is the Erikson continued emphasis on relationships. Everyone knows how important relationships are to young children, but graduate schools have rarely incorporated such an emphasis. Not so at Erikson. Through Fran's leadership, relationships between faculty and students, and among faculty and among students, are critical ingredients to our model. Although the advising system predated Fran, she is the one who helped us define it and make it the vibrant component it remains today. She modeled for all of us how to be warm and caring, and at the same time have high professional expectations. The last thing I want to say about Fran is something I trust will not become a part of her legacy. As I said in the beginning, she came when she was very young. Now she's leaving while she's very young. Now, I think it's clear I don't intend to follow her lead in this instance. I can only think it's the stress of such a large and demanding family that accounts for her wanting to leave us. So to you, Richard and Jason and her children and grandchildren, your gain is our loss. We will miss her, but her legacy will live on with us. Thank you.
I'm also going to have to read this to get through it. I'm both an alum and a retired faculty member. I started Erikson's program in 1996 when it was still in the Hyde Park Bank Building, and Barbara was one of my teachers. After graduating from Erikson, I spent several years teaching young children, and then I wanted to learn more. So I enrolled in a doctoral program at Northwestern University, and that's where I met Fran. Fran was a co-student, and we first became really good friends in a course on cognitive development, which you couldn't stand. After graduating from Northwestern, I had the wonderful good fortune to get a job on the Erikson faculty. And this good fortune was further enhanced a couple of years later when Fran also joined the faculty here. Now, most of you probably don't know this, but before she taught human development, Fran taught cognitive development. And I taught it with her. We co-taught cognitive development. And this was a wonderful experience for me because, as you know, Fran is such an incredibly gifted teacher. I marveled at Fran's easy conversational style of teaching and her ability to tell wonderful, well-chosen stories. Stories about children, parents, characters in novels, to illustrate theory and to make it real. Her lectures were actually kind of like well-crafted stories. I was also impressed by Fran's ability to encourage students to speak in class. And one way she did this was very simple. She had the ability to simply wait. And she could tolerate silences that made someone like me very anxious. But she had the courage to wait them out and make a space for students to speak and to find a voice. But most importantly, I think, Fran's teaching incorporated her acute insights and deep understanding of human development. Fran understands the complexity and ambiguities of human behavior, including the dark side in all of us. And Fran always takes into account the social and cultural context of development in order to comprehend where a behavior comes from and what a particular behavior means. You have to know about a particular person in their particular social and cultural context. And I think this core understanding of the importance of context is the origin of Fran's famous dictum, "It depends." And I think that this insight has informed everything that Fran has done at Erikson, and she's done a lot. She's been a dean and served to direct many other academic programs, and she's also been an extraordinary advisor, both to students and to faculty. And I think that Fran's deep understanding of context is an integral part of her tolerant, non-judgmental, and calming presence. She listens and asks questions, and she's quietly empathic, yet at the same time she's honest and tough-minded. She expects you to see your own contribution to whatever the problem is, and she expects you to figure out how to act right. She doesn't let you off the hook. And I think she's helped me and many others think through all sorts of anxiety-provoking problems and to arrive at, if not a perfect solution, at least a deeper understanding and a greater tolerance for living with the annoyances and ambiguities of all kinds of problematic situations. This is a very great gift, and thank you, Fran.
Hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Rogers Jay. I'm actually one of the board members and graduated from Erikson twice. And so as part of putting, I'm a glutton for punishment, right? Putting the program together, and it was kind of talked about that Fran wanted some alums to talk. So I get an email, Fran would like you to speak. I'm like, you know how you felt when comps came? I'm like, no! Am I gonna be able to do this? I didn't write anything because I felt she might pull out her pencil and want to start grading it. So I'm just gonna speak from the heart. Everything that the speakers have said before me, I echo. Fran was just an amazing addition to my life. I came to Erikson as an older student. So my children were grown and basically teenagers and grown. And I had a few challenges at Erikson at my time. And so not only was Fran my teacher, she was also almost a mentor for me also without the title of a mentor. And at one point, because the challenges were so great, I was actually about to give up at Erikson because my mom got sick, my husband got sick. I'm a mom, I'm working, and so back and forth, you know, it was really, so I just love her for just being there for me to be able to just talk through being just a person. And that's what the good thing about her, she lets you just talk about being a person. I loved being in her classes. I loved writing the papers. For me, it was almost like therapy. I loved to get back her comments, on the paper. It's like they were very non-judgmental. And I'm like, wow, this is really nice. Because we explored, as everyone said, culture, relationships, and it made me be more introspective and turn the mirror to myself and look at my relationships, my relationship with my children, my relationship with my mom, my relationships with family, and to see the type of person that I am now. And so I took Fran's classes back in 2001 and 2 and 3. And so I actually took Dynamics of Human Development 1, 2, and 3. I know they don't have that anymore, but it's kind of collapsed, but I actually took 1, 2, and 3. So I was able to actually have her those semesters and really, really come into my own. A couple of the things, and I'm going to share with her, a couple of the books that stood out for me that I really liked, or topics, was Ghost in the Nursery. Remember that, everybody? Wasn't that it? Yes, absolutely, a good one. Touch Points with Dr. Brazelton. Actually, I still have that book, and I use it in my classes in my own life. And then another one that I have, I didn't bring mine, Fran, but I have it, A Yellow Raft in Blue Water. Remember, isn't this amazing? I actually went to the library, and they had a copy, and I was happy to see it, so I was going to bring mine, and I forgot. But it's kind of dog-eared, and they said, oh, yeah, we still use that. So I had it in 2003, and to think 10 years later, they're still using this book. And if you've read this book, you know why you keep it. It's culture, it's relationships, it's really very thought-provoking. As I said with Fran, she allowed me as a student to grow. And so it gave a new meaning to me about human development. Not only looking at, I'm sorry. Thank you. Okay, sorry. Not only looking at the relationships, but going back and looking at my own self and how I developed, where I grew, and where I am now. It has been an amazing experience. Every time I see her, she's just an amazing person, and that's why I wanted to do justice. I'm like, no, pick somebody else. But what can I say about her? I know the students in my class just loved her. As it was said, she was very patient. She would have you think, and that's what I liked about it. Most people will, if you don't say anything, kind of give you the question, but actually drawing it out of you is more reflective. And so I became more of a reflective thinker. This is something that I definitely use with all of my students. We talk about becoming a very reflective thinker, and I modeled that from Fran because I did get that from her and the whole Erikson staff. I just want to say it has been an honor and a pleasure even for her to ask me to speak as one of a past alum. I try to embody and model everything that I learned here going forward, as I'm sure all of the other Erikson alums. And I just wanted to leave her with a little token of what I kind of came in my head with her name. So Fran, F, friendly and frank. R, radiant and relaxing. A, amazing and awesome. and nurturing and never judging. I can say every time I talked to her, it was never a judgment of what I wanted to talk about, whether it was something on a paper or something personal. And when comms came, you know how you're nervous, and I had to talk through with her, and you can do this. And so she was just always that person there, and I'm sure she is for everyone, because look how the place is packed. Love you. Thank you so much.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Fran. I'm so happy to be here tonight to celebrate you with everyone and to have the chance to pay you tribute publicly. I'm Josh Abrahams, class of 2011. Now, the truth is, if I'd had my way in late August 2009, I probably would have had very little to do with Fran during my time as a student at Erikson. You see, I began my experience in the dual degree program with a week-long late summer intro seminar team taught by Colette Davison and a Loyola professor. Soon into the week, I had fallen in love with Colette's perspective and thoughtfulness and slight brogue, and was thrilled to learn that I would be studying with her for the entire year of human development class. Then I learned that this was a mistaken assumption on my part and that someone called Fran Stott would be teaching me for that course. Well, I begged Colette to try to rearrange this. To no avail. She calmly assured me that I would really like Fran. I was not reassured. And just before the fall semester started, I ran into Colette and Fran in the hallway of Erikson, and Colette introduced us. Fran seemed fine. Any drama I may be hinting at in this story plateaus right now. Because truly, it took only one half of my first human development class meeting for me to see that Colette was right. I did really like Fran, and I saw that I was going to be in for a treat getting to work with her. Fran, excuse me. Fran, you're supposed to be being my transitional object right now. Fran, I was lucky enough to get to meet with you weekly for that class, along with my cohort for nearly a year, and then all the next year an internship seminar. I see you now in my mind, presiding gently and masterfully over class, half sitting on the table with a book in your hand, articulating sometimes very complex ideas in simple, clear language, and somehow holding intimate gazes with the entire group who you invited to have a profound experience of intellectual and emotional growth. You maintained high expectations of us, even as many of us struggled to adjust to graduate school academic demands, including papers that required serious depth of thought and sometimes emotional upheaval. What I found truly remarkable about you in this respect is that you were you were not surprised by the surfacing of our ghosts in the Institute, if you will. And you demonstrated great sensitivity to and respect for students' efforts to grapple with difficult ideas that often required making ourselves emotionally vulnerable in order to fully grasp. Wow, you are really important to me, I guess. My dear friend, I feel so fortunate to have experienced your intellectual engagement, your thoughtfulness, encouragement, and your playfulness and sense of humor as I went through the program. I always felt genuinely seen by you. Also, I know I will I know I will continue to remember with great fondness our chats in your office. And I will laugh at how I used to think of wacky reasons to go up to the 4th floor just to see if I could catch you not busy in your office. Finally, I'm grateful to you for your professional modeling as a teacher and mentor. You are truly masterful in these areas and in these roles, and I now carry you with me as a guide in my work. I wish you a wonderful retirement. I really imagine you having a blast being the true bon vivant that you are. I have a little gift I want to give you. This is a sketch I made, a likeness of you, circa 2009. It looks like you are sitting on a table in front of the classroom with a book in your hand, or half sitting on a table. I've written a few things that are so Fran Stott to me over this drawing, and I hear them in your voice too. Most are not direct quotes, but they might as well be. The whole thing is called For the Love of Fran. This title was, For the Love of Fran, was originally supposed to be a T-shirt that our cohort was creating, and we got bogged down in the last paper, and so something had to give. Also, I want to say that Sam Mizels and I did not plan to overlap in any of the things we referred to, but as you can see, everybody has some shared experience of Fran here. So the first one says, let's start with the biobehavioral shift. Love is impossible as long as people are interchangeable. That's HD object permanence. What did you think about the stern? What matters most is how we interact with the ghosts in our nurseries. I spend Thursdays with my granddaughters. Who is your evoked companion? Yes, but is she good enough? Does he have joint attention? Well, it depends, right? Seek mutuality and do what you like and something that you have some skill at. The ties that bind us are the ties that liberate us. For the love of Fran. Thank you, Fran. I do love you.
I'm Barbara Avil, class of '99, proudly representing the doctoral program. I have written my notes so to protect myself from crying. My first encounter with Fran was a little over 20 years ago when I interviewed with her over the phone for admission to the doctoral program. One of the first questions she asked me was, who my favorite theorists are, to which I proudly answered Stern and Mahler, not realizing who exactly I was talking to. After a slight pause, Fran said, "Really? So tell me, how do you reconcile the two?" In that moment, I knew that I had a lot to learn and that Fran was the person to teach me. For myself, and I think it's safe to say for my fellow doctoral students, Fran embodied the relational philosophy of Erikson. It was with Fran that we felt held and safe, refueled when depleted, and confident when exploring and taking risks. She gave credibility to the subjective experience in the context of a rigorous academic program. You always began classes with Nietzsche. Everyone's theory is their biography. In using this quote, you gave the theorists you taught about humanity and made their ideas seem somehow more accessible. You reminded us that we too were theorists by virtue of the ideas we took from each and made our own. And implicit in what you taught was that in order to be the good enough developmentalist, we must first understand ourselves. These were not only lessons for our professional selves, but lessons for life. And now, after spending all these years teaching countless students about the phases of human development, we gather here to celebrate your next phase and to reassure you that you have taught us well. Your generosity as a teacher and mentor has allowed us to take all that you gave us and continue to build toward ideas not yet known or even imagined. It will be with you as our evoked companion that we continue our growth and creativity in our work on behalf of children and families. So taking a page from your biography, Fran, what we wish for you is that you will continue to have many in your life who you will hold and be held by. May you always have someone to refuel with when famished. May your days be filled with discovery, adventure, creativity, relaxed but never stagnant, and may you have the time of your life.
Before we hear from you, Fran, we have one additional thing that we want to share with you. The alumni group, led by the board, has been working on, and I'm going to hold this up so everyone can see it, a keepsake book. It's got notes, it's got, I believe, even drawings, pictures, whatever alumni wanted to share with us over the course of the last 2 to 3 months since we've sent out the requests. We've given individuals the opportunity to write things this afternoon, this evening as well, so I'm going to have to take it back to fill it with those things. But we've put this forward for you on behalf of the alumni over the last almost 50 years.
This is really too much. Well, you know, I stepped down from being dean 6 years ago and had some to do, and now I get this. So my plan is to just come back next year so I can have another part. Anyway, in It is very, very special to be honored by AEI because, of course, I always felt a little left out that I'm not an Erikson graduate. So thank you, Alumni of Erikson Institute. For this honor, it is very, very important to me. Just as an aside, I've never been great at separations, but retiring from Erikson, even though developmentally appropriate, is wrenching. So, of course, you already know I'm crying, and I want to warn you about one more thing. I have about 1,000 thanks, and that's not enough. But anyway, I want to begin by giving special thanks to those of you who worked so hard to make this event not just possible, but beautiful. It is overwhelming. So the officers of AEI and Institutional Advancement and Randy, thank you so much for such a beautiful, beautiful evening. Thank you, Sam, for your words, although I may have my lawyer see you about some maybe some libel there. But thank you, Sam, for being such a fabulous mentor and for dreaming big. And thank you, Barbara, for starting Erikson, for setting the standard and always pushing us to think, and for always being there for me. Thank you, Joan, for being my grad school buddy, my Erikson buddy, now my travel buddy. And thank you, Joan, and all my friends here tonight for traveling the road of life with me. And of course, thank you, Debbie and Josh and Barbara. For you are really the real reason I'm here tonight, but I will come back to that. Since several of my family members are here, I also want to acknowledge their part. Thank you, Richard, for making me laugh, even when I'm grading papers, for having interesting ideas, and most importantly, for serving as my ballast. I also want to thank my son, Jason, who many of you heard about in human development. But you know, Jason, you may not exactly recognize me tonight with what all these people are saying. I just have to say it's easier to be a teacher than a mother. Anyway, so thank you for all the stories. And I thought Trish Perez was going to be here. She about finished me off. She had gone to college with Jason. And then she was sitting in my human development class. And every Monday night, she'd go home and call Jason and say, "You're not going to believe what she said today about you." Now, though it was before my time, Therese Benedict once taught it. In fact, she taught Human Development 3 at Erikson Institute. And she was noted for saying that your children offer you a second chance in life. You get to redo your issues as your child lives through his. So thank you, Jason, for helping me grow up and for doing a pretty good job of it yourself. Thank you, too, to my sister Helen for also helping me grow up. I needed a lot of help. I also want to thank Jason and his wife Angela and my stepdaughter Lisa, who I'm proud to say is an Erikson alum and one terrific teacher, and her husband Mark. I want to thank all four of you for our grandchildren, who not only provide stories to this day, but are truly life's reward. Or as Maria Peers used to say, grandchildren are life's only unambivalent relationship. Speaking of Maria Peers, I have to start at the beginning of my time at Erikson because I feel like this is a night to celebrate professional identity for all of us. So I will talk a little bit about my own. I apologize to those of you who have heard my stories before, but like a family story or a fairy tale, I have to keep telling them. Anyway, it must have been in the 70s that I was watching TV and saw a woman talking about how to help children whose parents were in the Vietnam War, how to help them cope and deal with their feelings. I told myself, that's who I want to be when I grow up. Very shortly after that TV show, I was taking 1-year-old Jason to the doctor, whose office was in the Hyde Park Bank building, Erikson's original home. Jason had a shot and was not too happy. Actually, he was screaming in the elevator. He had on a one-piece snowsuit, and he flipped over backwards. Just when the elevator door opened, in walked Maria Piers to see me hanging on to an upside-down child. She lifted Jason up and she said, "I bet I know who just was at the doctor's." Then I really wanted to be Maria Piers. So I went on to get a PhD and wound up at Erikson. You all know how wonderful Erikson is. It is truly the best graduate school in child development in the world. The thing is, I really believe that. But more importantly for me personally is that Erikson has been a terrific match for me. It has allowed me to pursue my deep interest in trying to figure out who children are and to feel good about doing it. As I like to say, and someone quoted me before, finding a job that you both like and are good at is professional identity at its most sublime. So what do I love about Erikson? We have a faculty, staff, and board of trustees who pretty much march together in fulfilling our mission. We're guided by our values, values that embrace complexity and rigor, and that strive to understand and aim for social justice. And God knows we believe in relationships. And as I like to say, Sam, thank you, we are small enough to be who we say we are. I also want to reinforce the obvious, that we always start with the child, of course in the context of family and community. When you leave Erikson, no matter how you go off into the world, as a teacher or a social worker or a program director, whatever, you understand who the child is. Then you tailor your craft to suit the child. It never ceases to amaze me how other professional schools start with, and mostly stick with, the craft. I think they lose the child. This award tonight is for my commitment to Erikson, its students and alumni. And as you know, for 14 years I was dean. It was a job I loved because it was a kick working for Barbara and Sam. My husband says kick is an old-fashioned word, but I like it. By the way, it was not my schooling that prepared me to work with Barbara and Sam. It was having a very smart, stubborn mother with high standards and a sense of humor. It was also very special to work with Erikson's faculty, a breed apart. A wonderful, feisty group who loved to dance in the land of big ideas and loved to disagree as to what these ideas are or mean. I honor you too, fellow faculty, for your commitment to Erikson. And Aisha, I honor you for putting up with the faculty. But my deep down favorite thing has always been teaching, both teaching human development and leading seminars. I first came to this field, as did many of you, to understand myself as a child. What could be more interesting than understanding a child's motivation? That she's not always so innocent. What things mean to her? What things mean to her family? How she relates to others? Will she be the same at age 28 as she is at 7? The readings in human development have changed greatly over the years, I think, as Barbara pointed out. When I started teaching human development, the content was mostly Erik Erikson. While we still use some of his enduring contributions, we've been through and debated many thinkers since the early days and find ourselves focusing greatly on outside influences to understand the inside of a child. Thank you, Aisha, for teaching me about culture. And thank you, Colette, for being such a great human development partner. We have created a wonderful course, even though it's probably still too easy. I trust that you're going to add some readings next year. As an aside, I'm sad to say that in the last month or so, we have lost 2 authors on our reading list. Both Daniel Stern and Lou Sander have recently died. As interesting as I think the human development material is, what makes it come alive is having a community to read it with. Students at Erikson are an amazing group, all coming for preparation for doing the most important kind of work. They have changed some over the years. For example, they are younger. They tend more to come soon after college. A couple of months ago, an alumnus from about 20 years ago was spending some time at Erikson on a project. She and I were walking down the hall following some students. She said, "They're so young. I had been working for years. I was married, you know." "And," she said, "we wore real clothes." What today's students lack in experience in formal clothes, they make up in enthusiasm and acceptance of differences, among other things. Erikson students have always brought their own experiences and openness to learning, challenge, and change. Now here's an example of something that's going on right now in my HD class. I thought it was something of an inside joke, but I think it's not so much anymore. The student took his name card, which I have here. Here's his name card. And he wrote something on the inside. And he periodically flashes it when I ask a question. He goes like this. It depends. Now, that's about the easiest A that anyone's ever gotten. So actually what happens when you teach at Erikson is that you are challenged. You learn and you change. And what can be better than that? This leads me to my favorite Erik Erikson stage, generativity. By this, Erikson essentially means that we need to find a way to give back in life. Teaching at Erikson has, I think, contributed to my generativity. And it has met Erikson's test of mutuality in that I received as much or more from the students than I gave. And, of course, your work is contributing to your generativity. So I have one last story for you. I recently found a children's book about generativity. It's called Miss Rumphius. So some of you know this book. I'm going to read a section. It's about a young girl who lives with her grandfather who has traveled the world, and he has a house by the sea. And so I'm going to start there. In the evening, Alice sat on her grandfather's knee and listened to his story of faraway places. When he had finished, Alice would say, "When I grow up, I too will go to faraway places. And when I grow old, I too will live by the sea." "That is all very well, little Alice," said her grandfather, But there is a third thing you must do. What is that? Asked Alice. You must do something to make the world more beautiful, said her grandfather. All right, said Alice, but she did not know what that could be. In the meantime, Alice got up and washed her face and ate porridge for breakfast. She went to school and came home and did her homework. And pretty soon, she was grown up. And so Alice made her way in life. She traveled the world, did some foolish things, and finally came back to a house by the sea. She then had to figure out how to make the world more beautiful, the most difficult thing of all. Her way was to plant fields of lupins everywhere she could. Blue and purple and rose-colored flowers covered the town and hillsides. There were lupins everywhere. So Barbara, Debbie, Josh, and all of you who are here tonight, thank you for challenging us and making this a truly special school. And thank you especially for going out into the world and for making it a more beautiful place.